Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. It is June the 6th, 2025. Let's talk about Game 1. Indy's victory over OKC in OKC. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let me be clear here. I was wrong on this game. I was expecting, in fact, I bet on OKC to cover the 9.5 points. I was expecting OKC to win by 10 or more. That's what it would have taken for me to win the bet. Instead, they lost the game. Let me congratulate Indy here, right? I don't want anyone to construe this video as he's discussing his book video. In reality, I'm hedged, right? Look at the past videos I've made, including one where I talked about getting Indy at 18-1 during the Knicks series, right, to win it all. So I'm hedged somewhat. But I want to be unambiguous here, right? In my opinion, OKC, which would have to win 4 of the next 6 games to win this NBA Finals, is the better team. I'm expecting them to come back and win the Finals, right? I believe OKC made some big mistakes in the fourth quarter of this game. Let's talk about a few of them here, right? I also believe, too, that the reality in betting sports is that, and let's put a percentage on it, right? The underdog is going to win, particularly in games like this, where neither team has recently been to the NBA Finals, right? There aren't, that syncing of team identity with the moment here. So guys are going to get nervous. Let me say there's a whole group of bettors out there who take unders in the first quarter of Super Bowls. Because if you look at the records of even a guy like Tom Brady, a guy who lived in the Super Bowl, you'll see that they don't score much in the first quarter, right? Because the quarterback is nervous, he's overthrowing the ball. The wide receiver is nervous. He's running the wrong routes. He's not getting out of breaks as fast as he could. The crowd noise is deafening. The linemen, even if the quarterback and the wide receiver are synced, the lineman might be nervous, can't hold the block. The throw is forced. Just understand that we're in the realm of human beings, right? You have a big event, weird things are going to happen. So let's talk about a couple of things here. Indy turns the ball over with less than 24 seconds left on the clock. Right, folks? They're already down by 2. They turn the ball over. Now, let me just point out that at this stage, you realize that this is a time for, we'll call them Mike Conley type players. Guys who are great from the free throw line. Guys who don't turn over the ball a lot. Guys who have a great handle. Right? Veterans who aren't going to panic. They have the experience. They've been in enough big moments. Now, sadly, OKC, young team, doesn't really have that Mike Conley, do they? Understand, with less than 24 seconds, in fact, less than 23 seconds when they get the ball, OKC never has to give the ball back. If OKC knew what they were doing, they would just dribble out the clock and force, and OKC is an excellent free throw shooting team, they would force Indy to foul them. Now understand how things turn out. OKC gets lucky. The MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, gets the ball. Right, folks? Shai's free throw percentage in the game is above 85%. Shai's free throw percentage on the year is above 85%. Understand, you win if you run out the clock. Understand, you win if they are forced to foul you late on the clock, and you get to take 2 uncontested free throws with a guy who has hit greater than 80%, 85% of his free throws. There's no reason, and I know this is hindsight, and hindsight's 100%, but there is no reason for Shai to even take the shot. Why risk it? You're up, you hold all the cards. You have a guy who's great from the free throw line. He doesn't have to do anything other than maintain possession. If they foul him, great. Understand too, with regard to free throws, if you miss the first free throw, you get a wide open second free throw. Think it through. So let's say disaster strikes. Shai's a young guy in his 20s. This is his first NBA Finals. He gets on the free throw line. He's nervous in the moment. He blows the first free throw. Then he can calm down, focus. He has a second bite at the apple. A second bite at the apple. Understand, if he hits the second free throw, you have a 3-point lead. In other words, Indy can come down and tie the game off a 3. But let's be real here. What are the odds of that happening? This is what you're playing. Right? The odds are 40% or less of Indy hitting a 3 to tie, not win. To tie the game. Right? Of course, you don't even have to worry about that. If your greater than 85% free throw shooter just hits the 2 free throws, then you're up by 4. So, a calm veteran team would understand we don't want to take a shot because we don't want Indy to have extra time if they get the rebound to come down the court. Right? The odds are in our favor. Right? You have Shai, he has a great handle. I don't care what rhythm he's in. I don't care how close he thinks he is to the rim. Any shot he takes is going to be more contested than a free throw. Right? They should have had Shai just dribble around, force Indy to come and foul him. If Shai hit both free throws, Indy, if they don't get fouled, would need more than 1 possession to win the game. Right? That's the winning course of action. That's not what they chose. Understand what happened. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and we all make mistakes. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the scoring leader, thought he had an open look at the basket and didn't have the experience to realize, open look or not, I'm better off getting fouled. Open look or not, I'm better off running clock. Right? It would have been great if he would have backed up had a low dribble, made it hard for someone to swipe the ball from him. You're up by 2. If he would have brought the ball back out, if he had a Mike Conley on his team, where he could have thrown the ball to him, so you'd have the same math, right? A guy with a free throw percentage above 85%, who doesn't turn over the ball a lot, right? With a 2-point lead, if they foul him, he's on the line, he hits 8.5 or higher. Conley's free throw percentage is in the 90s. He would hit 9 out of 10 of the free throws. He hits 2, this ball game is effectively over. But folks, instead, Shea saw a look he liked. He took the chance. Now let's think about the odds. Let's say Shea hits that shot 60% of the time. He's relatively close to the basket. Folks, I would argue that that's still too high risk. The risk is automatically cut if Shea, who hits better than 85% of his free throws, has the opportunity to take 2 independent shots at the basket, right? 2 independent free throws. Even a 60% short jumper is too high risk because you only have 1 shot at it. It isn't like I am, a 89% free throw shooter at the free throw line. I missed the first one. I still have an 89% chance of hitting the second. Now let's talk about what happened with Indy, and let me say this clearly. Let's not confuse success, and it worked out for Indy, with the best decision making. So Indy gets the rebound. They bring the ball up the court. Now let me just say that Tyrese Halliburton, I believe in him. I believe, in fact, I made a video before Game 1 where I called him the single point of failure, right, that OKC had to address, right? If OKC stops him, they stop the Pacers. It's that simple. This, to me, is like taking Magic out of Showtime back in the day, right? Halliburton is the point guard who everything goes through. Not only that, as we're finding out, Halliburton is the closer. Think about all the great years of Reggie Miller closing out games. And then realize that in the playoffs, Halliburton, who's a young guy, what is he, 25 years old? Has already closed out 5 playoff games, the same amount as Reggie Miller on his career. Right? I believe the record is LeBron with 8 closeouts. Let's just say LeBron has played in the playoffs a hell of a lot more times than Tyrese Halliburton. Right? So just understand, this is a premier closer. Indy gets the ball, they bring the ball up the court. Just understand that Mr. Premier Closer, while he's very good from 3, on the season hit less than 40% of his threes. Right? Let's be clear. Now, this is the new math in the NBA. I'm not sure if I understand it. I want to be clear. I'm an OG. Right? You're down by 2. Folks, seems to me that all you need is a 2 to send this game in overtime. Not only that, you've owned the fourth quarter. Seems to me you have OKC on their heels. But that's not the way young guys think. That's not this generation. So Tyrese Halliburton comes down. Understand, a 2-point shot, let's say it would have been a 50% shot. Right? Just understand, Halliburton instead decides to go for 3. Now, what does that mean? That means he has, math-wise, a 60% at least chance of missing the shot. Right? Halliburton hit slightly less than 40% from three. So the chances are you're going to lose the game. Let's get real too. When you take a longer shot and it hits the rim, there's going to be a bounce back. Right, folks? If the ball bounced off the rim and came out, understand, OKC only got the ball with 0.3 of a second left. 0.3 of a second. Halliburton's shot is an all or nothing shot. It's not like he's going to shoot a three, then it's going to come right off the basket, and oh, here's Miles Turner. Here's Pascal Siakam to tip it back in. That's not the way threes work. Right? I shoot a long three. It's physics. It hits the rim. It's going to bounce off. By the time that ball would have landed, in a sport where we don't believe you can get a shot off in 1/10 of a second, Indy would have lost the game. Now, no one's talking about that because, of course, Tyrese Halliburton drills the shot. It's a win. There's no overtime. Right? OKC gets the ball left with 0.3 of a second, and of course, that didn't work out. Because 0.3 of a second rarely works out. Right? So, let's just say, Indy got by here. This game is singular. Let's talk about how singular it is. Right? Folks, believe it or not, Indy during the regular season doesn't turn over the ball that much. They actually are good stewards of the ball, but here's the problem. They played the defensively challenged Knicks. Then, of course, they showed up in OKC against this level of defense, and they were shell-shocked. So Indy had 25 turnovers in the game. Look at the box score. The secrets are all there. 25 turnovers. Right, folks? That's preposterous. That's simply preposterous. Let's talk about something else that might be shocking to some. Because this is how singular, this is how one-off-ish this game was. Right? Shea not realizing that he just needed to dribble out the clock. Tyrese thinking, hey, it's all or nothing here. Right? Let's talk about another anomaly. Would it shock you to know that Indy on the regular season was 28th in the league in total rebounds? Folks, that's not a strength of their team. 28th in the league. Right? Yet somehow, in this game, they got 56 rebounds. 56. Right, folks, they out-rebounded OKC by 17 rebounds in OKC. How does that happen? Now again, think about the theme. Young guy in a Super Bowl or an NBA Finals or a World Series or a Stanley Cup. Right? Some young guy is there. The team's depending on him to do certain things. But the guy is caught up in the moment. He's nervous. I don't care how he sounds. I don't care how he looks. People know how to look cool. People know how to look chill. The PR department is giving you narratives that you can use in interviews. Right? But understand, in a game where Shea got 5 rebounds. Right? 5. Chet Holmgren got 6. How does that happen? Does Chet realize that he's a 7-footer? How does Chet Holmgren at home, only get 6 boards against a team that's terrible rebounding the basketball. One of the stories of this NBA Finals is how Indiana's head coach, and he's a magician, with a defensively challenged Tyrese Halliburton. Right, Tyrese? He's the main guy on Indy, but let's just say he's not on an all-defensive team. It's incredible how, with a defensively challenged Tyrese Halliburton, with a team that's turning over the ball 25 times, 25 times in a game that does not go to overtime, right? It's incredible how Rick Carlisle has gotten so much out of his Pacer team. Well, understand, I believe that things over time revert to the mean. I believe that players who are nervous in the first quarter of the first game of an NBA Finals or the first quarter of a Super Bowl, I believe eventually they settle down. I don't expect Chet Holmgren to only end up with 6 boards again in any game in these finals. Right? I don't expect Indy, a weak rebounding team, to be able to come out and get 17 more boards, whether at home or on the road, than the OKC Thunder. Just like I don't expect Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if he has the ball, right, one of the best free throw shooters on either team, with less than 24 seconds left in the game. In other words, stop, the shot clock's off. I don't expect him to take a shot that has a 60% chance of success when from the free throw line he'd have a better than 85% chance of success on 2 independent free throws with a 2-point lead already. Let me make a few other points here too. This game really is a one-off. I mean, sometimes you're going to see games and you're going to say to yourself, wow, I can't see it happening like this again. Right, folks? Who was that? Was that Steph Curry or was that Obi Toppin? How is Obi Toppin able to land 5 threes? 5 threes against OKC. If I'm OKC, I hope he continues to shoot that. Sooner or later, the numbers are going to come around. Right? If I'm dealing with Reggie Miller, if I'm dealing with Ray Allen, if I'm dealing with Steph Curry, right? Okay. We're going to have to make a defensive adjustment. I'm going to have a guy out there sticking the guy. Right? But we're dealing with Obi Toppin. 5 threes? Are you kidding me? So let me just say this. I'm expecting reversion to the mean. I'm expecting all of us to be able to figure out who the 68-win team was. I'm expecting better rebounding, at least boxing out, by the OKC Thunder. Right? I'm still expecting OKC to win this series. I tip my hat to Indy. This really is an underrated point guard. Right? How anyone could look at a guy who's closing out multiple playoff games and feel that he's overrated, that person's just being silly. Right? Let me say, too, that I give Indy credit. They're a tight team. This Nembhard guy, wow, he's a warrior. Right? Indy has the kind of personality where they're down, 15 points in the fourth quarter, and everyone keeps their cool. What OKC needs to realize is Indy, of course, came back against the Knicks in multiple games. right? OKC should have been prepared for the onslaught. With a lead, with their level of free throw shooting, rather than come down the court and jack up threes, even if you have a wide open three. They should have been focused on running clock. Right? Recognize Indy has a culture of coming back big in playoff games. They believe in themselves. You can't give them all the time in the world. Right? Let me say also, there has to be a part of the game where, unless you're Steph Curry, 2-point shots are prioritized. Right? If I have a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter, right, folks, understand, even Obi Toppin's hot shooting from three isn't going to be able to overcome the lead I have if my team is diligent in getting to the free throw line and also in making 2-point shots. Right? So, congratulations to Indy. I'm still expecting OKC to win the series. I'll agree. OKC will be in an extremely bad place if they lose game 2 at home. Right? Let's remember, too, OKC gave away home court against the Denver Nuggets. Heartbreaking loss. You might remember OKC then came back. You might remember OKC hit some awfully big free throws down the stretch in a game that they needed to win. Right? I'm still expecting OKC to win this series in 6 or less. Right? But Chet's going to have to realize that he's a 7+ footer. Right? These guys can't stand around and watch Miles Turner get rebounds. That's not the way it works. These guys have to play smart basketball. Let me say this too, and he's underrated. Jalen Williams, the first Santa Clara Bronco drafted since the great Steve Nash, right? A 40, 50, 90 machine, Steve Nash was. Jalen Williams has an explosive first step. We don't recognize it in part because the guy doesn't look like Michael Jordan, right? He doesn't look like a great athlete, but his first step is among the best in the game. Now, he actually got by defenders multiple times and put the ball right up on the rim, but the ball rolled off. Basketball is a game of inches, right? I'm expecting Jalen Williams, who's an excellent player, folks. I'm expecting Jalen Williams. He averaged over 20, 5 boards, 5 assists, to get some of those shots in game 2. Right? The ball just wasn't dropping the way you thought it should for the OKC Thunder. Right? Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.